Everyone, welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. In today's weather forecast, we'll be covering the Pineapple Express, bringing flooding rain and also heavy mountain snow across the west coast, including California. Then a major nor'easter is looking increasingly possible for very heavy snowfall across the northeast going into the middle of next week. And then another powerful storm next week across the middle of the country will be bringing the potential for heavy snow and even a more widespread episode of severe weather as we get towards late next week. Again, if you guys have not yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on all of my daily weather forecast updates each and every morning at 9 a.m. I cover Canada, the United States, and the tropics during tropical weather season. So hit the subscribe button down below, everyone, and also hit the like button, the thumbs up button. It helps to get all of this information out to as many people as possible. So I definitely appreciate all the subscribers and all the likes out there moving forward. And also, speaking of moving forward, the daylight savings time is actually Sunday morning at 2 a.m. So don't forget to move your clocks ahead 1 hour as we head into Sunday morning, as we do spring forward 1 hour. So definitely be sure to do that. But over the past 3 days for rainfall accumulation here across the Pacific Northwest, we have seen our fair share of rain here from Seattle all the way down through portions of Portland, Oregon, and even getting down into Northern California. And that is especially true into the coastal regions of northwestern California. Some of these areas have picked up over 4 inches of rain over the past 3 days, and even farther south here into central coastal California, some of these areas have picked up anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain as well over the past 3 days. And the same can be true across portions of the Sierra Nevada mountains. In some of these areas that do have that snowpack, we've also seen some very significant rain over the past 3 days. Also, over the past 3 days, some significant snow accumulation, especially as you go up in elevation here across the Pacific Northwest. Many of these areas have seen over a foot of snow. Some of these areas into western Oregon have even approached 2 feet of snow over the last 3 days. And again, several feet of snow has fallen across the upper elevations of the Sierra Nevadas here over the past 3 days across central and southern California. So definitely seeing an addition to that snowpack out there in those higher elevations. But as we move forward through the rest of this weekend, we have that Pineapple Express bringing very heavy snow, very heavy rain across the United States, with this jet stream parked right overhead of especially California and the West Coast here this weekend. And the same could be true as we get through next week. That overhead jet, that 250 millibar upper level jet stream, will be overhead here as we move through next week. So that is going to be bringing relentless moisture to the West Coast. And just to show you that here this weekend here, so from today into Sunday, March 12th, you see all these green anomalies down here. That's again 2 to 3 standard deviations above climatology for moisture. And that just continues even early next week on Tuesday, March 14th. Another strong system moves in, bringing even some bluer anomalies here up to 4 inches above climatology across especially central and southern California. We'll have a little bit of a break from the moisture in California and the West Coast going through late next week by Thursday, March 16th. But then yet again, another storm will be pushing in next weekend on Saturday, March 18th into Sunday, March 19th. This time maybe a little bit farther to the south, but we definitely could be seeing a lot more moisture going into next weekend as well. So again, this Pineapple Express will continue pretty much relentlessly over the next several days. So looking at this here across the West Coast today, we got more rain, more snow, especially in those higher elevations across portions of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Very heavy rain across coastal and the Sacramento Valley there into California. That continues maybe a little bit farther to the north across the Pacific Northwest, more so into western Washington, Oregon, and northern California on Sunday. We'll get a little bit of a break from some of the heavier rain in central coastal California on Sunday tomorrow. And then that starts to move a little bit farther to the south yet again as we head into early next week, say that Tuesday, March 14th timeframe, and then even Wednesday, March 15th, the middle of next week, we'll start to see that precipitation moving a little bit farther inland across most of the Intermountain West on Wednesday. And just looking over the next 5 days for additional rainfall accumulation, so from now through Thursday, March 16th through late next week, before we get that first break from the precipitation, we have several more inches of rain to go here across the West Coast. And zooming it in here to show you you definitely see 1 to 3, even 4 inches of rain or more across portions of western Washington state, including the Seattle region, down here into western portions of Oregon here. So from Portland to Eugene to even Medford, Oregon down here, and even farther south into northern and northwestern California, especially right along those coastal regions, we could be seeing 2 to 4 inches worth of rain going just through the next 5 days on top of what we've already seen. Moving farther south down the west coast, we have, again, several more inches of rain. This actually moves a little farther south as well, with that second system coming in on Tuesday, March 14th next week, and that will be including the Los Angeles region up there towards San Francisco and even Santa Barbara area as we head through early next week. So again, 1 to 3 inches of rain or more across those areas over the next 5 days on top of what we've already seen. And again, that is going to exacerbate the flooding problems across the West. So we have the marginal to slight risk of flash flooding, not only from today into tomorrow, but that it continues a little farther north into northern California, southwestern Oregon as we head into Sunday and Monday timeframe, and then even early next week on Monday, March 13th into Tuesday, March 14th. Again, we reintroduce a moderate risk for flash flooding up here across coastal California, especially into northwestern California here, and then that even continues farther south into central California and including the Sacramento Valley as we see that second system moving in on Tuesday, March 14th into Wednesday, March 15th. So definitely seeing a lot of rainfall out there, but how about the snow? So over the next 5 days, we're going to see our fair share of snowfall as well, starting up here across the Pacific Northwest. These higher elevations, we're going to be adding on another couple of feet of snow, especially here into western Washington state, western Oregon, central Idaho here, and then back down and toward the north central Rockies. A lot of these areas and the ski resorts will be benefiting from several more feet of snow going through the next 5 days. And look at the snowfall on top of what we've already seen. This is additional snowfall going through the next 5 days across the Sierra Nevada mountain range here. You definitely see 60, 70, even 80 more inches or more of snow across these areas. And I wouldn't be ruling out over 8 feet additional snowfall as we go through the next 5 to 7 days down here across central portions of the Sierra Nevada. So definitely be watching out for that. And again, farther to the north, we got our own problems to talk about here. We got blizzard warnings across North Dakota, getting into northwestern Minnesota, and then farther south in these purple shaded colors across South Dakota, northern Nebraska, and even into central portions of Minnesota and northwest Wisconsin. That is winter weather advisories. And then the pink shaded colors right along the international border there, from northwest Wisconsin toward the Duluth, Minnesota region, the Arrowhead of Minnesota, all the way back westward into northern Montana. Those are winter storm warnings where we are seeing some heavy snowfall over the next 24 to 48 hours. And looking first at the wind gust threat, that's why we have the blizzard warnings to the north. In combination with that precipitation falling as snow, we see some very strong winds, and you see these wind gusts up and around 50 miles per hour here. So this is definitely going to be blowing around the snow. Whether or not it is fluffy snow or wet snow, this definitely will be blowing around with wind gusts up around 50 miles per hour just through Sunday morning. And you can see the snowfall up here across the north. Again, we have some snow from Minnesota, northeastern North Dakota, all the way down into western Iowa here by noon time frame. And then rainfall farther south toward the Kansas City region. That pushes a little farther east by this evening. So mid-evening around 9 o'clock, places like Madison, Wisconsin, Eau Claire, down there toward La Crosse, and even toward Rockford, Illinois, we'll start to see more light to moderate snow showers. But farther south, central, southern Illinois into Indiana, it will be too warm for snowfall. So we'll see more of a cold rain across those areas with mid to upper 30s here for temperatures by the middle portion of this evening. And then again, that snowfall will continue across parts of the western and central Great Lakes states here as we head into Sunday morning. So again, as you're headed out for church services, definitely going to see some snowfall flying around portions of Minnesota, Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan, lower Michigan here, and then maybe as far south as the Ohio River Valley. And that will really continue through Sunday evening at 9 o'clock. So definitely seeing some snowfall flying out there. And looking at the total snowfall accumulation now through Monday morning on March 13th, a decent swath of at least a few inches of snow are expected across the upper Midwest and then moving its way eastward toward the western Great Lakes regions. And zooming it in, a decent swath of at least 6 to 10 inches worth of snow can be expected from northern, northeastern North Dakota across northern portions of Minnesota, right near and north of the Minneapolis-St. Paul region, and into the northern portions of Wisconsin as well. You can definitely expect 6 to 8 inches up here. Farther south, though, like Des Moines, Iowa, Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, then down toward the Chicagoland area, we'll probably see more of a 1 to 3 inch snowfall event for you guys, so just enough to shovel out there. And again, this will be that wet snowfall, so it is going to be hard to shovel. Whether or not you get 1 to 3 inches or 6 to 8 inches of snow, do take it easy out there shoveling. You definitely want to be safe. But then across the Northeast with this system, going into Monday morning, we're going to see maybe a half an inch to up to 2 inches worth of snow in some of these areas across central Pennsylvania, southern New York State here, just near and north of New York City, going through that Monday morning time frame. But farther to the south, on the warm side of the system, the Storm Prediction Center has issued a slight risk of severe weather across southeastern Oklahoma into south central Arkansas. This does include the Little Rock and Pine Bluffs area there, into portions of central and southern Arkansas later on this evening. And the probabilities for severe weather are damaging winds of at least 5% shading here across the Arklatex regions, maybe some wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour, maybe a brief isolated spin-up tornado here from the DFW Metroplex here in northeast Texas towards Texarkana here, and then on up into southeastern Oklahoma. I don't think the tornado threat will be that big of a deal, but will be a bigger deal will be the large hail threat here across the Arklatex from southeastern Oklahoma through south central Arkansas, near and south of Little Rock here toward the Pine Bluffs region. We might have to watch out for 2-inch or larger type of hailstones here later on this evening. And the reason why we see that is we have all this moisture streaming up from the south, from the Gulf of Mexico up here across the Arklatex. Dew points will be rising into the 50s and perhaps even the middle 60s down here by early on this evening. And we also see that translating into CAPE, or what we call convective available potential energy. The higher the energy value, the more the threat is for severe weather. And we see some 2,000 joules per kilogram values here on the energy levels across portions of south central Arkansas, northeast Texas, northern portions of Louisiana, and southeastern Oklahoma later on this evening. And what's also interesting about this setup is that the lapse rate here in the mid-levels are actually pretty respectable here. You got those lapse rates around 7 to 7.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer. So that means as you go up in elevation in the atmosphere naturally cools, but the stronger the cooling, the more those hailstones will want to grow larger and larger, and that is why we have that 2-inch or larger hailstone type of threat down there today with some of those storms. But what is also concerning about this setup is that the cap will be in place. The surface-based cap is going to be there, so it will take some time for the storms to initiate across parts of the Arklatex in the deep south later on today. So I think the atmosphere stays capped off through the day today, so we won't have any thunderstorms through this afternoon. Smooth sailing down here even through 3 o'clock, and then by 9 o'clock we start to lose that cap a little bit, at least across southeastern Oklahoma into Arkansas. We'll start to see some isolated thunderstorms develop, and these could turn severe very quickly, and then these will push farther south and east across Arkansas into northern Mississippi. Again, watching out for large hail, damaging winds, and possibly a brief spin-up tornado. I think, though, with western extent toward the DFW Metroplex and Texarkana, it will be a lot tougher to get thunderstorms because the cap may hold on stronger across those areas even into the overnight hours at 3 a.m. And then by the time we get into Sunday morning, that will push farther to the east. No capping inversion across the southeast, so it's open season for thunderstorms out here by Sunday morning. And then this will turn into an MCS, or a linear line of storms here from the Savannah, Georgia area back westward toward Mobile, Alabama, and perhaps even getting in toward the New Orleans region by Sunday evening. evening, this will turn more into a heavy rain and damaging wind threat with maybe some isolated 50 to 60 mile per hour winds as this enters southern Georgia and northern parts of Florida by Sunday evening. And again, this goes all the way through early Monday morning at 1 a.m. This will be producing some heavy rainfall. Make no mistake about it. We're going to be seeing areas of 1 to 2 inches, maybe locally higher amounts possible from the Tennessee Valley southward here toward the southeast, even into northern Florida here. So definitely have to be watching out for some flash flooding. And we have that slight risk for flash flooding today into tomorrow across central and eastern Arkansas, southwestern Tennessee, and in northern Mississippi here. And then that marginal threat for flash flooding across portions of central Alabama into Georgia as we go into tomorrow, Sunday, March 12th, into Monday, March 13th. This line of storms will be more progressive. So I'm not too terribly concerned of a widespread flash flooding threat. But if you get a couple storms moving over the same area here for a period of time, we definitely could be worrying about some flash flooding across those areas. Now we got to talk about the nor'easter potential across the Northeast going into the middle of next week, because the models have trended stronger with this system over the past few model cycles. The European forecast model into next week has that low pressure system right off the coast and right near the Cape Cod there east of Boston. And the GFS model, the American model, is actually just a little bit farther to the east, so just a little bit more offshore, and also stronger than the European forecast model is here. So that is a concern. And just looking briefly at the Ensemble guidance, the European Ensemble is very much on board with this, and also the GEFS Ensemble, which is the American Ensemble, is actually very much on board with it as well. So there's a lot of confidence in a nor'easter and potentially a major snowstorm going into the middle of next week across the Northeast. So starting Monday afternoon at 1 o'clock, we have the rain-snow mix here across the I-95 corridor, snow farther north here into upstate New York. That will spread farther to the east. Again, that rain-snow line is going to be very tricky here. Right now, I'm using the European high-resolution guidance, which has that low bottoming out around a 983 millibar low right near the coastline here. But of course, if the GFS model verifies, it might be a little farther offshore, so we could push that snow line maybe a bit farther south towards New York City and Boston by 1 a.m. Tuesday if that model verifies. But no matter how you slice it, there's going to be some very heavy snow somewhere across the Northeast. That I-95 corridor is still in play as we go into Tuesday afternoon. That continues through Wednesday afternoon on March 15th. So definitely a long period of some heavy snow across the Northeast. And briefly looking at the snowfall accumulations here, again, these are early estimates going into next week, so don't take these amounts verbatim. Well, we are definitely seeing agreement of at least a foot of snow here, potentially across southern New York State here, much of the I-95 corridor from Boston to Hartford, Connecticut, maybe near and north of New York City on the European model. The GFS model is more bullish, so we're talking about 2 to even 3 feet of snow on this model, as it has a stronger surface cyclone and farther offshore. That means more of the I-95 corridor would be in play with the GFS solution. And briefly looking at the GEFS ensemble snowfall guidance, it actually does put that I-95 corridor in play from New York City to Hartford, Connecticut, and even the Boston area, including Rhode Island as well, with that heavy snowfall going into next week. So there is confidence in at least a foot of snow, but whether or not we see 2, even 3 feet of snow is yet to be seen. But definitely a major nor'easter is looking likely as we head into next week, so we'll be fine-tuning the details. Also into next week, we have a brief warm-up in play here across the middle of the country with the colder air on the system's backside. We have a surface cyclogenesis with a low-pressure system developing on the lee side of the Rockies, likely sometime late next week, and then moving up across the upper Midwest. And this is concerning for a warm-up, a brief warm-up at that, by next Thursday. And you can see that here on the European guidance, that late next week on Thursday into Friday, March 16th into the 17th, we may have some heavier snows somewhere across the upper Midwest or near the international border up here, northern, central Minnesota, and toward the UP of Michigan. Farther south, though, there is a concern for heavy rain and possibly a more widespread episode of severe weather going into late next week, especially when we see those bulk shear values from the surface all the way up to the 500 millibar layer on Thursday into Friday, fairly strong out of the southwest. So we'll have strong southwesterlies in the jet stream, and I think it is something to watch. So in this blue shaded color, you might have to watch out for some heavy snow across the Dakotas, northern Nebraska up here into portions of Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, much of northern lower Michigan, and especially the UP of Michigan late next week into that Thursday, Friday timeframe as that low pressure system develops off the lee side of the Rockies and pushes across the northeast there into the upper Midwest regions and western Great Lakes. Farther south, though, on the warm side, we actually might have a more widespread area of potential severe weather from southern Wisconsin, eastern Iowa, northern Illinois, and possibly as far south as the Gulf Coast toward the Texas coastline there, going into that Thursday and potentially Friday timeframe. So this will be the next big system to watch, and that's what I will be keeping an eye on through the next few model cycles to see what occurs from the system. But beyond that system, as it moves out, it's going to be a brief warm-up, and then we're back to winter across the middle of the country next weekend on Saturday, March 18th, back to colder than normal temperatures with, again, 15 to 20 degrees below average temperatures, especially if we lay down some heavy snow up here across the upper Midwest by late next week. So to recap my weather forecast for you guys, the Pineapple Express continues with flooding rain and heavy mountain snow across the West Coast, including California, going through the next several days. A major nor'easter with increasing confidence for very heavy snow. At least a foot of snow is likely, with possibly up to 3 feet across parts of the Northeast, including the I-95 corridor during the middle of next week. And then another powerful storm next week across the middle of the country could lead to heavy snow across the upper Midwest and a more widespread episode of severe weather from the Midwest here all the way to the Gulf Coast through late next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, press the thumbs up button down below. Leave any comments, questions, and concerns below. I'll get to those later on today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new, and hit the notification bell to get all of my daily weather forecast updates on this channel. Have a great Saturday, everybody. A great rest of your weekend, and I will see you all in the next video.